is I have this piece roughly in place with this. Now I'm gonna tack a little more here, get this section nice and tight, and I can figure out what I'm doing here. Well, welcome to the 31st episode of the Chambler build series. I go ahead and fix this area and rebuild it for the wiper motor, and I also get a handmade cowl piece that formed. You'll see that in the episode, but that's all done, so that's where we're going. So stick around, let's get to it. What I have to do next is get all this body seam sealer and cut all these things even and bring this lip back somewhat and clean up that area, because this whole thing is a mess. I've got to get it to a point where it's consistent so I can start building the firewall down from that little piece I just made. So cutty, chop, chop, chop. Got to figure out where I'm gonna cut this jagged junk. I'm likely gonna follow that magic marker line down and through. Then I've got to bring everything so it meets this upper flange, but I think I might bring it up, step it back, and bring it up, because this might be a really nice spot for a battery, because there's no space right now that I can put a battery except in the back, and I don't need to do that. That's just more expense I don't want to have to go through. I should be able to fit a battery here, and with the heater core being inside, the lines would be over here. So in theory it'll work, but we'll see. I went ahead and cleaned all the seam sealer and all the paint off this journal area. I'm going to go ahead and trim some of this top edge before I start working on the side, because this is going to be a little more critical. I think I can square some of this. It's going to have to kind of be, I'm going to have to see how this is before I go too much farther. I don't know how well this is going to come off on screen, but I was able to really straighten a lot of this out. It's still a giant mess, but it's a much straighter giant mess. I use this piece of masking tape to lay out where I think the cut line is going to work best for this area. The only area I might leave alone for now until I really decide what I'm going to shape is this part right here up and over this transmission cable. This part's going to come off, and I will decide what I'm doing with this area once I get this area sort of squared up and decent. I took a closer look before I started cutting and realized that that was at a bad angle, so I relaid out the tape, and that's a little bit more even, so now I'll get to cutting. Now everything is trimmed up. I ended up cutting this. I'm going to grind this to one consistent level. Same thing I'm going to do over on that side where the transmission controller cable is. Pull the tape off, get everything nice and consistent, and start making the donuts. I was going to try to pull it off one smooth piece, but nothing on this car is smooth. So I did some more fine quality CAD work. Ended up making this panel. As you can see, there's a pretty decent mess over there. So this thing probably looks pretty junky. Once I get everything finished, weld some pieces up on it, weld the ends on it together, and then do a little bit more forming of this and these edges, this is going to fit the bill, and I can really start moving. This will also give me a place to mount the wiper motor. And so far it looks like it clears, which is a plus. Here is cleaned up, degreased, removed all paint and loose metal. I'm going to go ahead and hit it with weld-through primer on both sides, hit the repair patch, and then I'll get to welding it. Step one of the 85 steps that I'm going to have to do to make this firewall slash cowl slash julienne fries complete is done. I'm going to reshape the opening on the passenger side, which would be on the left side in the screen. Fill these areas that have issues with weld and material. And then anything that has a hole in this bottom lip that you're seeing will get filled up once I put the inner panels in. I'm going to use them as plug weld spots, because I just don't have any more ways to reshape it to make it work. This doesn't look bad. It's going to look great when everything is done. And it's going to be structural, which is the biggest thing. And it's going to be hidden by a wiper motor. So there's some advantages. Reshaped everything. Cleaned up all the edges to get them to meet a lot better. I'm going to go ahead and put the mount in for the wiper motor and drill that bottom hole in. The wiper motor and bracket fit nice, so I'm going to have to pull the motor off so I can get all the right measurements to drill the holes for the bracket. So I'll do that now, and then I'll throw the motor back in so I can verify the fitment of the panel that I have to make under here. It's going to come back to here. You can barely see it. The cowl panel's right there. Now they put a new set of blades in the shear. I did it on a short, which I'll link somewhere above. Let's see how it cuts and cross your fingers. Never done this before. I think I put the blade in position upside down. Yep, I put the blade in upside down. So I will fix that and we'll be back. Well, let's see if I fix this correctly this time. I had the outside blades upside down. These things happen. Don't get frustrated. Figure it out. Keep working with it. You'll figure it out. You'll find a plan. No one has half the battle. G.I. Joe. Something like that. I should have done that a long time ago. That was night and day different. That was so much better. Ooh, look, the king curly fry. I'm going to attempt to make the inner structure for the cowl out of one piece. Unfortunately, the way I've got my box brake set up, I can't bend it the easy way or the fast way, so we will see how this works. I should be bending it the second bend first, but see how it goes. I made a template out of scrap for the inner cowl piece where it dips down for the wiper motor. So I need to try to make this giant piece contoured the same way. It'll make more sense once I show Team the car. I'm gonna check it with the template. It's like gonna be a little too much. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, that was way too much. The nice thing about a box brake is you can sort of straighten things back out if you overbend them. You just have to be careful. A little more. Not perfect, but it's dang close to perfect. I'll see how bad I can screw this up trying to do the other bend. Let's see how this goes. That actually might be good. Getting this out of here might be a big problem because the throat in the jaw is only so large. Oh, good Lord, look at how heavy that is to push. Oh, that actually wasn't that bad. Yeah, it was close, but not close enough. Way too much stuff in this garage. Oh, that didn't feel good. Plane, Air Force. This little brake is not designed to bend this large a sheet of material, let's put it. But it's much better than not having one, that's for sure. This section I just showed you bending. I went ahead and put it in the car, measured it, and cut and bent this edge. I'll show you it in the car, it'll make a little more sense. Hopefully this is starting to make sense. I'll take you through my thought process and see where it goes. So there's some fairly complex design in here, a couple different angles and curves, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to do that easily with the tools I have and just my skill level at this point. So that's why I made this one giant piece over to the side and the passenger side. What I'll end up doing is taking that piece that's hanging down and bend it up and either fit it into the upper cowl part or right under it and spot weld it, but that's not that big a deal right now. I also have that space because it'll give me more room to put the heater box that I'm going to get it put in here because they're all around 10 by 8 by 5 and I needed the extra space. I'm not worried about the glove box per se, and I definitely don't need the space that I had before for the stock one because I fed down on that lip on the upper area there and that's what rotted it out. Don't know how well you're going to see it with the light, but I have room for the wiper arms. And that's how the driver's side will actually pivot off the motor mount for the wipers. So everything should have the clearance it needs. I'll show you what I got going on over here. I made this overly complicated piece that will slide up in here. So that will actually fit up in there. I'm going to have to trim it. I'm also going to roll the front edge of this panel up so that it all kind of fits together. I'll likely weld this piece to this, but I need to get everything else fit, make sure that it works right. And I should be able to make a face panel that covers this open area from here over. I'll adjust it as need be, tack it, and likely connect it at the bottom with some plug welds, and then just seam seal the absolute hell out of this entire area. Should take it down from about 8 to 10 pieces if I'm lucky. Maybe just 3 up here, and then the whole bottom is a whole another mess. But we'll come to that. Well, we'll address that as I get to it. The only nice part about having this thing so messed up is I have easy access in here to mark the line where I need to make this next bend on this piece. Yeah, that marked like crap. Okay. So I'll have to straighten that mark out, but at least I know where I need to bend it. Then I'll have to figure out what I'm doing with this inner edge. I'll probably cut this out and make the inner, I'll figure it out as we go. I am short on time and long on work. Cut the last little bit of this off, and this should fit in there. I might have to trim that piece, which I showed you guys. We'll cover that when I get there. Should have changed that blade a month ago. This piece is cut off and it's in place. I'll end up having to trim it probably here and back to this line. That's where the inner pieces will be, but I might actually be able to bend this and use this as structure as I put the inner firewall in. We'll see. This area can be adjusted and dealt with at a later time. Biggest thing is fitting everything inside and getting everything cut and fit. So many times I can say fit. So I'm very happy with the initial fit. And now I need to trim that little piece and make it work with the bigger piece and get that all together and get this thing the heck in here. I gotta be careful. I'm not making donuts. It's a welding hat. If I have this piece roughly in place with this, now I'm gonna tack a little more here, get this section nice and tight, and I can figure out what I'm doing here. Went and formed the piece and welded it in place to go with that front cap that I made. So this is all now one piece welded together. Got the bump ups and everything else. I went and used a piece of scrap steel to give me a line where I can cut so I can make this plate meet this sheet metal on here as close as possible. It does trail off here. The dash goes away into the corner, and the front firewall area is flat, so I really couldn't account for that with this piece that I made. Never would have been able to measure it right, at least not with my available toolage and skills at the moment. I'm gonna go ahead and pop the clamps off and bend this corner back in a little bit. The dash is flat in certain spots and tends to want to come out over into the corner. Let me see what I can do to kind of flatten that out, get it as flat a face as humanly possible. I will make a corner piece for that area, and I'm gonna try to make one long piece that follows the contours and fits against here. It's likely going to have an overlap or under edge so that as it comes in, I can weld it up, and then I'm just going to seam seal the bejesus out of it because it's such a weird spot. I'll never get it fully welded. I'm going to do the best I can, and then literally just glue it. I might even try the panel bond. I've been looking forward to trying that. There's some spots I'm going to have to do it on the inside just because I'll never get all these weird flexes and points sealed if I don't do something, and the seam sealer will do a good job of it, but if I can get some extra strength in it with panel bond, that would be great as well. I've already marked out the piece like I showed you with this. I already marked it out, so I'm going to go ahead and, I'm not going to cut it yet. What I'm going to do is pop this down and try to gently bend some of this corner over. There is a structural reinforcement here. I'm going to try to leave that alone because that can't hurt where it is. I'm also probably going to have to chip away a little bit around it because some of this is rusted. This paneling is likely to go up to this edge or close to it because I also want to cover this weird gap that was in the bump down that was in the old cowl panel. I'm yammering on. I got to start working now. To cut this out because that just cracked. But yeah, this just cracked. Hell. Okay, so I'm gonna be notching it up a bit. I'll pull this panel out. I'm gonna keep flattening this out to some degree because it's already broken. Can't screw it up more, in theory. Oh yeah, that gave me a bunch. I'm gonna go ahead and mark this area out again, pull the panel, and see what I have to do to address this area. And then I'll just keep doing stuff, and as I cover something important, I'll bring it back. I went ahead and cleaned the whole area up, trimmed this back, and cut this brace so that it was still functional, but I could move the piece. I'll tack it back together a little bit and get it smoothed out because I don't want to cut any more of this out. It's still important to the dash. It's gonna be about a 1/4 of an inch gap. Here, I'll address that with a cap I'll have to put on this corner because it's going to require a couple different bends, so I'll make a cap for it of some kind. Go ahead out to the front and mark the outer piece where it meets the flange. I'll show you that as I'm marking it out, and then we'll get to cutting that piece and priming and prepping all this other stuff. I'm going to have to trim this whole edge back so it's even where it meets this flange because that's where the inner piece of the firewall will come up. This will butt up against it. Then I'll make another one of these inner pieces for this area, but I'll do that once I got everything else fit because these caps are going to stay open until I get more of it done. So I'm going to have to seam seal everything, etc., etc. I've got this outer edge fully marked, so I'm going to go ahead and nip that out. Give me a chance to put the firewall flange up into that space because it needs some of that as well. This is lined for the curvature of the dash in the interior compartment, so that's what I'm going to have to trace. That'll let me put the flange flat up against it. But that is the curve. I need to get as close to it as I can. The way I'm going to make the outer vertical piece should allow me to account for hiccups, but the tighter it is, the better it'll look, the better it should work together, the stronger it should be in the end if I don't have to make funny cuts or do things with it. So it'd be nice if it was just, you know, PlayStation controller away from being done. Just cut. Pew, well done, hey. All the extra plug hole holes are drilled, everything's cleaned up, well through primered, and pieces ready to go in. I'll show you some B-roll of that stuff, and we'll slap this in here. This is by no means my finest creation ever, but it is a pretty big attempt to get one-ish piece to fit this. Heavy on the ish part. I'm gonna go ahead and engineer, get all the clamps in position, get everything nice and tight, and I'll start plug holding this thing in place. Yep, that's what I'm hoping doesn't happen. Four-wheeler. Teenager's four-wheeler. Let's get to welding. I guess we'll see if this little bitty welding blanket I got actually does anything. Thought it was larger in the picture. Now I gotta go inside and do the couple spots I need to do in there and make sure that everything is connected, and I put a couple tacks in and go from there. Well, everything is in and secure. I'll do the final trimming and fitment of this after I get the firewall and everything else in, because I want to have access in here to both weld and do things if I need to for the firewall, and also to seam seal all the front stuff once that's all welded in, because I need to really seal this area up, because I can foresee leaks no matter how good I do at this. So I want to really just goober the heck out of it. But this is in secure. I'm going to pop the clamps off the front, and I can finally move forward again after I figure out the wiper motor first. But it's forward and onward and sideward. Thank you all so much for watching the 31st episode of the Chambler build series. I'm working on making the entire structure for the center of the firewall between the Cherokee chassis and the Rambler body. It's not one smooth area, so there's lots of little pieces that I'm forming, and I've got all the center just welded in right now. I'm going to start working to the driver's side, and then I'll do the passenger side. So most of that will be in the next episode, if not all of it. So thank you all for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. Subscribing is free. Liking is free. Let me know what you want to see in the comment section. Have a good day. See you next week. This thing will be going to Sykeston. Might be in a ball of flames, but it will be going to Sykeston. No Internationals, here I come.